Hi, you are watching Veterans Issues on Thursday, November 8th, 2012. We're very happy to have you tune in. This is CANTV Channel 21, and my name is Carol Williams. I'm with an organization called the United States Veterans Art Program, and I am with
Lt Colonel Lucila Ibarra, but you can call me Lucy. I was the sexual assault response coordinator in Iraq, and I also was the equal opportunity advisor addressing amongst many issues of discrimination or unfair treatment, but also sexual harassment.
So you'll notice she's still wearing her uniform, and she's got some heavy-duty. She's got some heavy-duty rank there.
I sanitized, so.
But I still see your rank there, which is a beautiful thing. My name is Carol, and I'm also a veteran. The organization that I'm with is called the United States Veterans Art Program, and what we do is to increase the representation of veterans in the arts community. The major way that we do that is we work with VA recreation therapy departments. That's an umbrella for music and arts therapy, and we actually donate resources that those departments need in order to do therapy that's been around for 40 years. Most of the VA medical centers have a recreation therapy department. We've donated all kinds of resources, some of which are art supplies, of course, is popular, musical equipment, photography is really popular, and some computer applications. But tonight we are actually going to talk about something that's not directly related to art. We're going to talk about military sexual trauma. We're going to talk about sexual harassment. And this is a live hotline show, so there is a number there on your screen, 312-738-1060. And we'd love to have you call in and tell us what you think, ask us questions, talk to me, talk to Lt Colonel Lucy, who is here with us again this month and will also be back in December. So we are going to talk about military sexual trauma. The organization that we're with today is called the United States Veterans Art Program. That is our website and our email. We also have a phone number there. If you feel that you would like to get in touch with us, that would be most excellent. We are here in Chicago, and we have a very active website that we update constantly. So we're going to talk about military sexual trauma, and we are lucky to have Lucy here today because there are many direct concerns and also your professional overview of this subject. This is, as you probably know, this is an epidemic. Mm-hmm. It's epidemic. Military sexual trauma, the first time I heard this term, I thought it meant only people who had been physically assaulted. But it's not.
It's not.
It's
not. And I didn't realize that either. Same thing here. Mm-hmm. I've been in since 1980, and the first time I've heard that term was a couple years ago. And I thought, no, this is very pervasive. Except now we're just naming it.
Right.
We're naming it.
Right.
What we have a problem, I believe, is that we're still not able to call it as it is, especially some of the behaviors. I brought the definition of military sexual trauma, which is called MST. And actually, before I even look at that, I want to remind people that actually PTSD is the bigger umbrella. MST is part of that naming category. And I'm going to show you the actual definition of MST, and I'll read a little bit about this, and then we're going to take a call here. The definition of MST that's used by the VA is psychological trauma which resulted from a physical assault of a sexual nature. That's one thing. Battery of a sexual nature, that's another thing. Or the most important thing is sexual harassment which occurred while the veteran was serving on active duty or active duty for training. And
that sexual harassment part is the one of the key words here that we're going to talk about in a minute. We have a caller on the line. Would you like to ask us your question or comment?
Yes.
Hi. Go ahead. You're actually on the air.
Yes. When these sexual harassments, let's just say, for instance, in the Marine Corps, when these sexual harassments was like leaked out to the press or actually went up to the higher command, what was their response? And after the sexual harassment or sexual assault had taken place, would these women, would any of them harm, like to silence them?
You're sort of talking about the danger of reporting things. The whistleblower, of course, is always at risk.
Yeah, like saying that if this was multiple people, if this wasn't just one person, was any of them harmed, or can they be harmed?
Retribution.
Retaliation, retribution. There's a lot of silencing that does take place, and there's certain processes and procedures and reporting options that there is, but now with policies in place, there are the victims do have rights and options, but it's very difficult.
Now, for this caller, I'm not sure if she was active duty. I don't think she was active duty. I think she is talking about a veteran. But if you're on active duty and you report things, it's a little bit different than once you're a veteran. The VA, of course, doesn't handle complaints like that against whoever you're talking about while you were on active duty. Basically, what they do is try to treat the psychological impact of that. If you're on active duty, there's a completely different pathway.
But then there's also the IG, the Inspector General, that the DOD Inspector General that can address these concerns as well, and provide guidance. But they do need to be addressed, because if we continue to be silent, then it's gonna continue to be ignored. So it is important.
Well, ironically, I did bring in something, and I'm hoping that our caller is still listening, but. One of the things that I brought in today, because sexual harassment is so really incredibly difficult and personal to talk about, and I'm not talking about sexual assault, and I'm not talking about physical battery or sexual any type of rape, but when we talk about sexual harassment, it's a beginning. It's a stepping off point. Sometimes it involves body parts, but generally it's not as personal and it's not as embarrassing to talk about, which is one of the reasons why I brought in a couple things that pertained to me. And I think Lucy also remembers this particular little nugget here from when I was in basic training in 1978. You were in basic training in 1980. This was actually, and this is a little bit of a refresher course for anybody that remembers going through basic training. This is a manual that is dated 1972, and this is how they're teaching us to put together our gas masks. And it's actually a pocket-sized manual. I Xeroxed it so that I could get it larger. And you see that they're teaching soldiers how to clean and how to, and I'm going to zoom in even a little bit bigger, how to clean and how to maintain and put together their gas masks. And they're using women in bathing suits to illustrate all the steps. Now this woman down here is actually standing in a bucket. They're talking about washing the mask. So they have her standing in the bucket. Isn't that apropos? Couple more here. This is the 6th and 7th page of this. This woman holding the sign very conveniently staged here. And that's how to put your gas mask together. And that's 1972, and I bring this in, and we talk about institutional sexual harassment, and I bring that in because I think it's a good example of how far we've come, the things that we've been able to change and the things that we've been able to fix. And those are visual things that we were able to go back and say, wow, at least we're not doing that anymore. But what are we still doing, and what can we change?
Well, now these days we're going into the electronic age, so emails and texting, sexting, things of that nature, or Facebook. There's some very inappropriate comments and remarks and interaction that is taking place on those social media sites.
Really?
So it's elevated, it's escalated, actually, and I think, and it's more pervasive.
Did you hear that word she just used? Sescalated. That's very interesting.
And we find that, and that's why I'm speaking up, because I find that many are our own leaders. Our own leaders who are committing these offenses. And they are offenses.
They are offensive and
They're crimes.
offensive. Yes, absolutely. Speaking of, I happen to have what constituted, I'm not going to read this out loud because it's probably not meant for prime time. This is a joke. If you can see this on your TV screen, you can read that while I'm talking. This is an actual disposition form, which if you've ever been in the military, this is a legitimate DF, as we call it, with a dirty joke on it. It's signed by the commander of the unit that I was with, and I saw it on the bulletin board. It was posted on the bulletin board. And I saw it and I took it down, and this is in March of 1979. And I'd never heard of the term sexual harassment in my life. And I was a pretty progressive feminist, but I'd never heard of this word sexual harassment. So if you're seeing this on TV and you're able to read this, you can get an idea of what this is about. I'm going to take it off the overhead.
And that was publicly posted?
Yes, this was publicly posted and
for all to see.
Right, absolutely. So I took it to the IG and it went through the I had a JAG officer that was assigned to me who was just absolutely the most impressive person I think I've ever met in my life, who I didn't think that they would take it seriously, but this was 1979, and I think that they were really determined to start a campaign against this kind of culture. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, somebody's taking this seriously. I just was so amazed that someone would take this seriously. And it was found substantiated, of course. It's never enough to just have one small case, but I bring this up constantly because it's a way to talk about sexual harassment without talking about my body parts or the body parts of somebody who's talking about what happened to them. But this is what we mean when we talk about sexual harassment, and that sexual harassment is the slippery slope, and you've got the comment for that.
And it's not just females, it's males too.
Absolutely. We are not.
I was the equal opportunity advisor with the Illinois Army National Guard, and I'll never forget where these two pilots were we were like in a main office area, kind of like this. And as the equal opportunity advisor, I have to speak up. I will speak up, but what I wanted to see, who was going to speak up against this. What happened was these two pilots in their flight suits.
Were they men?
Suits, yes, they were males. And they walked by, and they're pretty revealing because they encouraged the pilots to, well, I think these days now they have to wear their entire uniform. They can't just wear their flight suit. But I'm not sure about that. But what was happening was that this female civilian kind of saw as they were walking forward, she kept saying very offensive remarks relating to their behind and this and that. They were so embarrassed, they sat down and turned red, beet red, because it was just so in the open, in front of everybody. It was humiliating. And I can see the reaction of some of the others. They felt so, I felt really humiliated and aghast as to how could she do that. And then what was told, oh, that's just so-and-so. She always does that.
Oh, sure.
That's just so-and-so because because of her position. I said, it's wrong. And I did say something and they did address it. But otherwise it wouldn't have been. But she has always done this. This has been condoned. This has been encouraged. This has been tolerated.
Right.
Until someone speaks up. So it's not just females. It's males too.
And it's the speaking up part that's really difficult. And in fact, Lucy, if you could see her desk over here, has a stack of books that she uses. I think we'll have to actually bring it over here in between us. She has a stack of books that she uses as sort of what she calls self-therapy. And this is her favorite one right now, is the
Cow in the parking lot.
The cow in the parking lot. Sorry, that's very shiny. A Zen approach to overcoming anger. And you'll see that it doesn't say forgetting anger or getting rid of anger, because as we've talked before, we don't want to get rid of our anger.
I like my anger. I want to keep my anger.
There we go. There
and
you go.
So my anger is, I'm going to redirect my my anger to energize
and use it
to continue focusing on this. And I don't want to fight. I'm not a fighter, but I do believe to be somewhat of a crusader, to enlighten and empower all, and to make changes for our sake.
For our sake, for everyone's sake. We have to learn how the new male and female working society figures out how to be in the same room,
coexist
and see each other as people first, and then perhaps available gender opportunity second, or never. And it's certainly not confined to only the military, but we're talking about this because that's our population. That's military, that's veteran, and that's our love. That's our communication lines. So we're talking about MST not because it's so much worse in the military than it is in society.
But for me is that even though I've been in 30 years, and I never thought I'd be in 30 years, but what I see is that, and this is the way I see it, is that whoever behaved that way and did this, who taught them? Where did they learn it from? Someone superior. Someone superior kind of cultivated that environment.
Right.
So we are still cultivating this environment, and we're doing it to this day.
Well,
we're doing it to this day.
And when you talk
we're setting
about
the example.
When you talk about our superiors, here's an article. Oh, that's really not readable. I'm going to tell you what General Westmoreland said in 1985 here. This is from an Army Times article, that he said that allowing unwed soldiers to remain in service after having a baby marks, quote, the first time that our nation has, by its official policy, sanctioned an immoral practice, unquote. And then he later said that many of the unwed female soldiers who have babies, quote, are prostitutes anyway, unquote. And that's actually from an Army Times article. Now, I'm sure there's plenty of people who say this and worse, but this is General Westmoreland. If you don't know who General Westmoreland is, you probably need to wake up and, yeah. So that's what you mean when you say our leaders.
Our leaders from every echelon echelon on up, because we learn it from somewhere. And so when someone's harassing me or treating me in a very disrespectful way. I thought, who treated you that way? And why was it allowed? And then it's perpetuated. It's perpetuated. So I stepped up and said something, so I'm going into the dragon's den. I'm okay with that.
Well, just don't go into the doghouse, because if I know you, you'll never come back out, because Lucy is a dog lover person. MST is something that once you go from active duty into the VA, they screen every single person coming into the VA for MST. They ask questions about, did this happen to you? Whether it's sexual harassment, sexual assault, whether it's any type of inappropriate behaviors, they will screen you for it. Be ready to answer with all of your honesty intact, because the numbers that they're coming up with are, like I said, epidemic.
Well, and also someone like me, I was hell-bent on finding an escape catch. I was going to take everything to my grave. And I'm glad I got rescued. That's what I call it, rescued, because they were asking the right questions, or very pointed questions, where I knew I can no longer run from my past. And as you probably can heard throughout this session, I've had the hiccups. That's what I have. That's part of my PTSD. My MST PTSD is my hiccups, along with my skin condition and some of the other. But I'm embracing this. I'm embracing this as a conversation starter. And I will start a conversation with you, whoever wants to.
You have a number on the phone on the screen, 312-738-1060, and I can almost imagine that if you're watching this, you might want to do some listening, because Lucy has the word. She's got the word. We're going to be here every month on the third Thursday of the month, talking about this, not because we are pointing fingers, but because this is the subject that we have the passion about, and we love our connection with the service. We are proud of what we have done, and we actually really want to make a better world for everybody.
And leaders.
Leaders, we have to have leaders
Who lead?
even, you know what?
Leaders who lead.
Even if you don't have any rank, you can still lead. You can lead sitting on the bus and you hear somebody say something that's really awful, and speak up and say something. Too nice for your own good. How to stop making 9 self-sabotaging mistakes. This is actually one of those self-help books about being assertive, which I think is a big issue for a lot of women.
And being able to say no. No, I don't want that. No.
No means no. In any number of things. I mean, not just
I don't wanna
sexual
do another
assault.
work.
No. It's, setting barriers and not letting yourself feel like you have to be a victim. Last time that we were here, we had somebody call in and ask, I've tried to get into the VA, or maybe they haven't even been to the VA yet. It takes so long. They're overrun with requests for treatment for PTSD. I brought in a couple of places where you can go. This is that's outside the VA, www.thesoldiersproject.org. They provide free treatment, psychological treatment, to military service members. And just remember the Soldiers Project, and then go onto their website. They'll tell you to pick a spot. Here's another one called www.helppro.com. And they are actually a link from Service Women's Action Network. If you're a Facebook lover, you can go onto Facebook and log into any of these places. Military Sexual Trauma, just put that up there, and you'll see all of these pages pop up. and you'll find out that there's a lot of people out there that you can talk to. But we'd love to talk to you, and we are very happy to be here. This is
Thank you.
Veterans Issues. Every Thursday night, we are the United States Veterans Art Program, and don't forget about your recreation therapy department in your local VA that you can get a referral for.
I hug my dog a lot.
She's a dog hugger.
I hug my dog a lot.
Absolutely.
I love my
We'll
dog.
bring a picture of Tony the next time. Thank you very much. We're glad that you've been here, and we hope to see you next month.
Happy Veterans Day.
Sorry, Happy Veterans Day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We'll see you next month. Bye.